HMS Ardent was the 7th Type 21 frigate. She was laid down on the 25th of February 1974, launched on May 9th, 1975, and commissioned on the 13th of October 1977. She would be based out of Her Majesty's Naval Base Devonport alongside the rest of her sister ships. Ardent would sail for the Falklands and Operation Corporate from Devonport on April 19, 1982. Despite only having 4 days warning of the deployment, she was well stored and in good material and operational state. She had recently done cost and excise alloy express with the amphibious group. She had a few changes in terms of crew rotation over the last 2 years before she was sailing. It was clear that she was a highly respected ship from the flotilla staff, and she was commanded well. She had the best gunnery in the fleet, as well as the most accurate missiles for any ship. During her passage to the south, to Ascension Island, she was in company with HMS Argonaut and RFA Regent and Plumleaf. She would spend 6 days around Ascension Isles when she then headed south with the SS Canberra and Elk to join the Fearless group on May the 10th. Throughout her passage down south, she was training for the conflict ahead with a gun-ex and damage control exercises if the need arises. However, she wasn't able to do any ADEXs, and this might have come in handy when she would get to the Falklands. It is to note that before she left Devonport, her crew attempted to acquire several GPMGs before sailing. However, they would not be able to acquire all of them except for one. So in turn, they'd have to strap this to a railing and various parts of the ship along with her stock of LMG. On the 19th/20th of May, the amphibious group approached the Falkland Islands from the east, and as such, Ardent's initial role would be to carry out naval gunfire support in Grantham Sound, which was to be the south of the landing area. She was also able to be the first ship into Falkland Sound. At 20:10 Zulu on May the 20th, Ardent was attached from the amphibious group and made a high-speed transit into the Falkland Sound, passing the north entrance at the Sound at midnight. She then proceeded straight to her fire support station in the south of Grantham Sound. Although she prepared for every eventuality, her arrival was uneventful. Surprisingly, there was no call to fire before dawn, which was about 1100 Zulu British time. But from then on, Ardent was involved in regular gunfire support on Goose Green Airfield and other targets. This was extremely successful, and at least 3 Picara aircraft were damaged on. These engagements continued until 1600 to about 1700 Zulu. It's confirmed there was no further need for naval gunfire support requirements in the area, and so she stopped. After dawn the next day, it brought a fine clear day with excellent visibility. The first air attacks on the group by Argentine aircraft had commenced. Most of them were concentrating on the ship near San Carlos Water, but Ardent was approached on 3 occasions by pairs of Paraka aircraft and by the occasional Mirage on its way up the Sound. When those aircraft did turn for the Ardent, they would be basically engaged by Ardent. At about 1600 Zulu, a lone Skyhawk emerged over the land close to the south of the ship and dropped 2 bombs in the water, one either side of the ship. These, however, failed to explode, and on this occasion only the port 20mm gun actually opened up, as the warning was too short to fire the Seacat. After a round of gunfire support, she had the confirmation of her completion of the GFS at 1700 that day. Now Ardent was told to split air attacks from the south with HMS Yarmouth. The origin of the order was a bit obscure, but Ardent proceeded on patrol with the line west of the Northwest Island, with Yarmouth to the west of her. Shortly after her arrival in the new area, at 1740, a group of 3 A4 Skyhawks were sighted by Ardent crossing Falkland Sound to the west. They circled the ship anti-clockwise at about 2 miles, and then turned in to attack from the northeast. The attack pressed home vigorously on the port quarter, out of the arcs of the 4.5 gun, although the 20mm and LMGs did open up. The Seacat, however, in emergency mode, had failed to fire, and it was actually for no immediate reason why. These attacks would basically damage the ship. The attack caused major damage on the hangar area, tossed the Seacat mounting onto the flight deck, and severely damaged the Lynx helicopter. The aft switchboard was severely damaged and resulted in loss of power, including normal supplies to the 4.5 gun. There was flooding in the dining hall and the ship's control centre and flat. as well as the galley areas due to the fractured pipes, and a fire started in the starboard side of the hangar. There was also several casualties. However, Ardent was still able to steer and was in full control of the main engines, and having reported a state to the damage control officer, she was ordered to proceed to San Carlos water. Shortly after this, the ship headed north at about 1800 Zulu. A further attack of 5 A4 Skyhawks developed. They approached from either quarter and dropped a considerable number of normal and retard bombs, 4 differing sizes. The ship was virtually defenseless and could not fend off this attack. 2 to 4 bombs exploded in the ship aft of the hangar, and further unexploded bombs almost certainly penetrated the ship from the hangar, as well as aft the port side. Several bombs exploded in the water nearby, and the ship basically heaved heavily. Again, most of the bombs fell aft, but there was some damage to the plating on the starboard side and the forward auxiliary machinery room, resulting in a minor leak. The bombs aft had basically devastated the dining hall and the paint shop, as well as basically causing mass casualties, as well as having steering failure, although the Tyne engines were still driving the ship and they were under control. Although a full damage assessment had not been completed and the ship's team had virtually got the fires and flooding of the first attack under control when the second attack happened. Shortly after a further logistics brief, the ship was now lifting noticeably to starboard, and a decision was made to abandon ship, and Yarmouth was called alongside to take off her ship's. At 1855 Zulu, the captain was the last to leave HMS Ardent, and Yarmouth, after a short delay where she fouled herself on the anchor chain of Ardent, then sailed at speed for San Carlos water. There, the survivors were transferred to the SS Canberra, while Broadsword also picked up 1 survivor and she accompanied them to the area of operations. On the way, a check was carried out of the ship's company, and once on Canberra, it was confirmed that 22 were either dead or missing. Shortly after dark, Canberra sailed from the area of operations, and the Ardent ship's company were on their way home. Ardent was still afloat and was seen by Broadsword steadily burning throughout the night, with several major explosions on board. After 0600 Zulu on May the 22nd, when Broadsword left the scene, no other person could be found to have seen Ardent afloat. It is believed that the ship sank about 0630 Zulu. Now, divers would then subsequently visit the wreck, which was about 4 cables southwest of the Northwest Island. Now, HMS Ardent was well prepared for the Falklands operation. She was well organised and efficient ship, and had the right program beforehand. They basically had assessed the threat well and prepared the best she could to meet it. Her material state was high and the personnel confident of the operation and the equipment, along with the training. In a report after the ship had sunk, this is the MOD Board Inquiry report, it states that it is highly likely that only fires at the time were in the senior rates dining hall, port side, with the associated space beneath, and around the AVCAP pump in the hangar. Neither was yet near the magazines, and each could have been tackled provided fire main pressure maintained available. There was also the possibility that there was a minor fire in the galley/canteen vicinity. However, the Board of Inquiry, basically their conclusions of this attack was, the HMS Ardent was well prepared, well stored and in good material state on arrival to the Falklands. Her ship's company had achieved high standards in training and were confident in themselves and their ship. The information officer or intelligence officer had accurately assessed the prime threat to her ship and her likely role and trained accordingly. HMS Ardent's station in Falkland Sound was isolated and exposed her to air attack, and this was acknowledged by the senior command staff. The limitations on radar within Falkland Sound and the subsequent use of emergency mode on weapon systems were all expected by the entire ship's company, as well as the command staff who sent her there. HMS Ardent's weapon systems for defense against determined air attack close in was inadequate. HMS Ardent was hit by bombs as a result of 2 air attacks pressed home with determination. Failure from the Seacat system to fire during the first major attack on Ardent made her virtually defenseless. There was a total breakdown in damage control and command. Now, Ardent sank at about 22:06:30 Zulu, so basically on the 22nd at 06:30 Zulu, in May, as a result of fire extending through the ship from aft, causing the magazines to explode, which in turn initiated a slow flooding through splintering in the ship's bottom. If the fire aft had been contained, it should have been possible to save Ardent. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so that's the end of that video. Hopefully you learned something new, because I most certainly did. Now, if you want to go and support the channel, there is a link in the description below to the Patreon page. I would recommend doing it, but it's up to you. Also, if you want to come and talk to me, there's a link in the description for the Discord channel. There's a couple of good guys over there. We talk about a wide variety of stuff. So yeah, so thanks for watching, guys. Hit that notification button to stay up to date with what I'm uploading. And obviously give it a like, give it a subscribe if you really want to, and comments always good. I like reading your comments. So take care. Catch you next time.